Okay guys, well we're back again for another lesson in crochet. I apologize for being gone for the week. We had a funeral and then fighting a sinus infection, so these things happen. So last time when we were making the hat, I talked to you about how when I make a hat, I get to the end of about an inch here and I do a single crochet. That just makes it a little easier to tighten the top, and you don't have quite the bulk that you have with the blue hat. As you can see with the blue hat, we have kind of a bulky top, which there's nothing wrong with it. It's just I like a little cleaner look at the top, and it's going to look a lot like this, but just a little thinner. I'm also going to show you how to join it a little better. Since our last visit we didn't get to do too much on that joining. The blue yarn's a little hard to see. So I'm going to do 2 rows. You can see here where I've got the half double crochet, and then I've got the crochet here. The single crochet, I apologize. So let's chain 1, turn, then we're going to go back into these 4 single crochets, okay, with just single crochet. And then we're going to go back with our half double crochet in the back loop only. We're going to go all the way to the end. I'll try to slow down here if you're having trouble remembering how to do the half double crochet. I'll show you again. Wrap over, go through the back loop only. I don't know if you were able to see that on the blue very well, but you see that little heart at the top? You got this step front, this loop, and this loop. You want to always take that loop when we're doing this ribbing effect. So yarn over, hold it with your thumb, go under there, pull it through. You've got 3 loops on there. Pull through all of the loops. So I'll go slow a little bit, and then I'm going to go a little quicker so we can get to the end of this row. I'm making this hat for my husband for our local team, college team, so he can wear it to the game next week. These hats are pretty easy to whip up. You can make a hat or a scarf for somebody generally out of less than a skein of yarn. So then you end up with enough left over to put a pom-pom on top if you want to also. Or you can do it in different colors. I can show you a couple hats that I've made in the past. I don't have them with me right now. I've got to go down and grab them, but let's get this one finished, and we'll go from there. Keeping my tension with my finger wrapped up. So there you go. And we'll just keep crocheting along here. Like I said, go slowly. You tear it out. Do it many times as you want. You're going along and you see a little mistake down there, do not worry about it. You still have a hat that was made with love. So let's keep going along. I apologize, I don't quite have my voice back, so this sinus infection wasn't very fun. Let's keep going. Get to the end here. And I apologize, my hands sometimes tend to get a little closer to me, and then I get myself off camera, and I don't mean to do that. I noticed when I was stitching together that blue one, I did that a few times, and I apologize. So I'm going to show you on this one how to join together again. Make it just a little clearer, I hope, because I've got 2 different color threads here, so it's going to be easier to see. I'm hoping with the next video to show you how to join threads and how to weave threads. Those are 2 things you're going to do at the end of every project. Sometimes I find it's easier to weave those threads in at pretty much every other time that it needs done. Then it's a whole lot less overwhelming when you get to the end of a project and you see all those loose threads. It can be a little bit disheartening. And I've had some questions on how to keep the end straight. And there's sometimes you're sitting here trying to figure out where to put it in, and you can't really see a stitch to put it into. With crocheting, it's very forgiving. Now in this case, let's finish this row and I'll show you. Remember I said I go through completely, not just a back loop on the bottom one. It gives it a little more strength. But say you can, here you're going to find this stitch that's kind of bent over, because what this is it's your single crochet turning stitch. So it's not going to be as large as these other stitches and not quite as easy to find. So you can see there's always a little V at the top. You can go through those. Now, when you get to something and you can't find that little V, just go through a spot that seems like it would be logical. Sometimes you kind of have to just make it work, and there's no right or wrong. Go into there, pull that through. So I'm going to make the one chain turn. We'll flip our work over, and then we're going to go into there with our half double. Remember, we go through both loops on the first stitch. Can't really tell that there's two loops there, but you can see them. So this half chain, or this chain, turning chain, is kind of just hanging out here. So just ignore that. Don't go back into that, because then you're going to have your project going like that. You don't want to do that. And you don't want to skip over here, because then you're going to be angled this way. So just go right back into there with your half double. And then let's start again with the back loop only. We'll go clear to the end of this row, and then we're going to be done with this hat. Now, I have noticed when you use this method, generally I'm saying about, 21 inches across or so is for a normal man's head, but measure and subtract an inch. Up here, when you're going across though, you're going to maybe want to add, generally it's about 18 to 19 or 13 to 14 inches tall. Maybe add an inch in the height if you're going to do this. We're going to see how this looks when we're done, because you can always add it along the bottom. It's just not quite as conducive to a nice smooth hat. So kind of pay attention to how tall you want the hat. The ones I've made for my sons, they tend to want those big old poof-poofs on top. Pom-poms, I'm sorry. And so you got to have that extra room up there, because it adds a little weight to it. So here we go. Just going along here. And I hope I got myself a light. I'm hoping it's gotten rid of some of those shadows. It's a little bit bright, but I hope you can see it well. And yellow, light blue, light green, any of those lighter colors are a lot easier to work with when you're starting out. The darker colors, like the green I have here, dark brown, dark purple, even the dark blue, and oh, definitely black, they're very difficult to work with. I did buy myself a neck light, which has really been a blessing and given me some light shining right on the project. And you can direct that so it doesn't shine in the face of all your people in your room. But the other thing you can do is put, like I've done here, a white background. You can use a table or a pillowcase or a hand towel. Just put something white behind it. Then you can see through these holes. You see how these holes really make it nice to know where you need to be. So you want to put something dark behind it. But I would suggest not starting with not working with the dark yarn until you get real comfortable with your crochet abilities. There's a lot of memes on social media that make fun of black yarn as kind of being a problem, and it definitely is. Okay, we're almost to the end here, and I'm going to show you. Now, I like to end on this end so that when I bring my seam up to sew it, all the threads are being hidden at the top. But in this case, we're not going to be able to do that, and that is perfectly okay. It's very simple to hide those yarns. You don't want to just cut them, and you can crochet over them. That's one way to do it, and I do that a lot. But then I come back and still weave a tail in, because crocheted over is not real secure, and every time you wash the hat or wash any of your projects, those are going to come loose. So as I'm getting to the end, I want to make sure I don't go into here. So I've got 1, 2, 3, and 4. So I've got 3 more I need to do back loop onlys. So here we go. And now you can see I've got those 4 spaces. I got my half double crochet on the hook right now, but now I'm going to go in, pull through and do one. I'm just going to make a single crochet, which I have a video for that too if you're not familiar with that. There's a really pretty stitch you can do with the single crochet, chain one, single crochet, chain one. We might work on that later. So I've left these two because I want to show you later, if we have time, how to weave those in. Just kind of make them even. So we're at the end here. Let's take it out. We're all done with the project. So now we want to join these together. Kind of see which one you want to be the top, the front, and the back. I kind of try to always keep that I have the back, leave my loops, my chains in the back, or my loose threads in the back. Then I know what the back is, and I know where I'm going to hide all my threads. And that way, if anything does come loose back there, it's not going to be a problem because it's going to be hidden in your hat. This is my back. So put your two right edges together, just like you would in sewing. Now before, I just kind of crocheted along, and you could see that I ended up having a little bit different here and there, and you have to add and subtract. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put some counters in here. These are these little, look like little baby safety pins, and they can help keep your work together. Got my little needles, and I told you last time I was going to show you my little trick here for threading the needle. Got that at a big box store, and it works great. So what we're going to do is we want this right here, because this is our bottom. We want a smooth bottom. I'm going to hook that together. Just poke that through a couple of your loops. Try not to split your yarn, and hook that together. And now we're going to go down to this end, and we're going to do the same thing. Even though I haven't quite got you where we need to be yet, we're still going to hook this together. Okay, you're going to remove these as you work along, so don't worry about them being in your way. So let's come up a little bit. I seem to only have 4 with me today, so we're just going to do it in 4 spots. So come up here. If you have to, these little plastic things are real flexible. They also will break, so be careful. Okay, we're going to put that in there. And let's go down here about halfway between these two. Now let's put one in right there. Okay, so, whoops, see, I broke that one. That's okay. Let me get myself here. I want you to be able to see this whole thing. So you can kind of see I just have them joined together. It's just kind of a temporary thing. So, now we're going to stitch this together, and I'm hoping that my hands stay on camera this whole time so I can get you. Let me move that just a little closer. Okay. This yarn was our chain tail. When we chained along this row to get started with the hat, this is where we started. Leave that little guy sitting over there. He's going to be helpful later on. Okay, so put your hook back on here, and what we're going to do is just simply a slip stitch. So see, sometimes you don't have a stitch to really go into or where to go, so what would be logical here is just right under this first chain. It's kind of a little bit of an awkward spot, but don't worry about it. Just stick your hook in there. Kind of just push that guy out of the way. And we're going to slip stitch through there. Okay? So we got our slip stitch. Okay, now let's flip it over because we're working down the hat. Okay? So, remember I talked about this little green yarn? I want you to lay, okay, now we can get rid of this guy. We know where we are. But since I broke this one, let's just put this one up there for a little extra support. I'll just put this on there. Got my slip stitch here. So we're going to go in. We went through this loop on that chain when we were crocheting, and now you see we have a little hole there. That's the bottom half of that chain. We're going to go through that. And what we're going to try to do is line up every single one of those to this side. And we're going to go through those loops. So let's see how we can do. Let's grab this first one. And let's go, we're going to skip to this second one because I already did that one. And if you look, looks like we're lining up pretty well. Try to keep it as close as possible, but don't fret about it if you don't have it quite right. Oops, look what I did there. I split that yarn. So we pull it out of there, open that up a little bit, stick it right in there. Remember, working yarn towards you. Okay, let's go to the next one. Go through that hole, go through that, through both loops. Both loops now. We are both loop people on this way down. Go through there, and we hopefully end up with the last single crochet. We sure did. So perfect. So now we're going to go into there and try to go through every single one. You may end up skipping something and you got to skip one. Don't feel bad about it. Just do that. We're going to go all the way along. I'm going to do a few more stitches, and I'm going to see, we're going to just go through here for slip stitch. We wrap our yarn and we pull it, but we don't grab another one. We just pull it right through. That way you're going to have the smallest amount of yarn being right there at that seam, and it's not going to be as bulky. See how we're staying nice and smooth here? That's exactly what we want. Those little stitch markers can be helpful. They do make a stitch marker that just kind of looks like a big unopened circle. I don't find those to be as helpful. They tend to fall off pretty easily. I do have some, and there's situations where they're handy, but if you're going to do a pattern that calls for doing X amount of rows and then switch into a different thing, which we do that a lot, those are nice to have just to mark where you are. Okay, let's open this up. See our stitch? Just a pretty little stitch. And that's actually going to be hidden in the back anyway. And in the front, you can't even tell. So let's just keep going along here. I'll move a little slower so you can kind of watch exactly what I'm doing. This is an important stitch. Okay, let's get rid of our little broken one. Let's just toss that baby in the garbage. See, it's going to snag my yarn. We don't like that. That can happen. Don't feel bad about them. They're tiny, tiny cost involved in those. Let me throw that away. Okay. A lot of times when you order a crochet hook or some yarn, they throw those in. That's how I think I ended up with a lot of mine. Okay, let's keep going along. There we go. As you can see, I'm picking up that hole, then this one, then this one. You can kind of see where there's, looks like a stitch, and then you've got two threads there. If you want to do something that you want it to be real secure, try to always do two threads. Those situations when you have to do one, that just puts a little weakness on it. And I've also found if you're using acrylic, if you're using wool or cotton, washing's going to be a little different. For hats and scarves and stuff, I like to use acrylic because people don't have to be quite so careful with the product. You can buy those mesh bags, those mesh laundry bags that people wash their lingerie in and that kind of stuff. I got a great big huge one, and I washed blankets in it, my crochet blankets. You just throw them in there, wash it on cold, dry it on just air, don't let it get completely dry. Take it out and hang it over something, preferably something you don't care that's going to get ruined. Don't hang it over your wooden chair, you're going to be mad at yourself. And just let it dry and they fluff right up. I do like to put fabric softener in, whether it be in the wash or at a dryer sheet. Either way, keeps this yarn real nice and soft, and it cleans up real well. You could also spot clean it. I've made some blankets that are so big I can't wash them. Just take them to the sink and see there, I almost skipped a stitch. Take them to the sink, have somebody help you hold it up to the sink, and run a little soap and water through it. Cold water sometimes just takes care of the problem, and you don't have to do a thing about it. And then let it dry before you go stretching on that yarn, because yarn gets a little weak when it's wet, so you don't want it to stretch out of shape on you. See, and so far I'm lining right up with my little markers. Very handy. They are very, very handy. Put that one over out of the way. Let's keep going. People like to do fringe. I've done fringe for a blanket for my daughter-in-law, and fringe was kind of a, in my world, an old-fashioned thing. We used to put it on every single thing, your blankets, your scarves, everything. But not quite as popular as it used to be. When you're pulling those markers out, do be careful. Like I said, those are cheap. They can snag your yarn, so just pull them out carefully. Don't just go yanking on anything when you're doing crochet. Like I said, if it feels like it's hard to do, you're having to force something, you're going to break yarn. Do not force anything. If you feel like it's forcing, back it out and take a look at what you've done and see what's going on. You might have split some yarns a little earlier. And that, the thing I like about starting at the other end and working back up to the top of the hat can hide a whole bunch of problems. If you got any problems in there, didn't come out quite even. If you're going it like this way to the bottom, you better make sure you got it pretty straight because you don't want your hat to look uneven. And so far, we're just coming out exactly where we want to. So that's what we want to do. So let's just keep going here. There are lots of ways to join depending on the blanket you're making. If you look and you can see a blanket that's on my photo for my page, that's called the carpenter's wheel. And that's a whole bunch of corner to corner blocks that you hook together. And I hook that together like this sometimes, and I do a little different stitch sometimes because it's all you can see it all. So it kind of depends on if you have two different colors like this that are contrast and you want them to both show, or if you're trying to hide the color. And that's kind of something for another day, but we're going to get to the end of this. Take my little pen out of here, and we're going to actually be pretty much done with this hat. I'd have a couple minutes. I'll show you how to weave in your ends. Okay, so you're just going to pay attention here. See, it looks like we kind of might have an extra stitch. That's okay. We're going to put 2 in this one stitch. We're going to go down here to this very last stitch. Now you see what I mean about sometimes you can't really tell where the stitch is, but logically it's going to be at the end. So we're going to pick a spot where we can get 2 threads, and over here we know that's our single crochet. So then we're going to go in like that, and we're just going to pull it through. Let me get my scissors here. And we're going to pull that through, and we are done with that hat, for that part anyway. So as you can see now, it kind of comes to an angle up here. That's what I wanted, because I think it just joins together a little better. We're still going to join the hat the same way. We're going to get some thread, and we're going to weave it through there. So let me just join it together. I've got this one tail thread here we're not going to worry about. We're going to start right here. So then when we get to the end, actually what I might do is start like this. When I get to the end, I can tie it to this, but we'll see. We'll see which way I want to start. So first off, got to decide on what color you want to start with. And in this green yard that I got from somebody, I sadly don't know the brand name or anything about it, but it's super soft, but it's still a 4-ply. You can mix your textures, just make sure you're keeping the same ply. I have done blankets where you mix it, and it's a little bit awkward to try to keep things straight. This yellow yarn is a little heavier duty yarn, so I'm going to use that to tie the top. So we're going to just cut ourselves off a couple foot of yarn here. We're not going to need that much, but you know, better to be safe than sorry. So I've got my little unit here that I find, and then I've got all these needles in here, but the one I like the best, I dropped behind my chair, so I need to find it. So I have another section of needles. I got needles all over the place. Let's pick this one. Okay, so the way you do this, and you can, let me put this over to the clear. You can get this, like I said, at a big box store. Usually it comes with a needle and this threader. There's other ways to do it, lots of ways to thread your needle. But as I get older, my eyesight's not as great. This works the best for me. See how slick that was? Before we drop all these on the floor, let's put our little things away. I have this little reader eyeglass case, which works great, but you can get any little container to put those in. You want to keep track of them. They'll go all over the place. So, like sewing, we have a long end and a short end. We're not going to knot this because obviously we're going to knot it here. So, let's start here. I want to join where our seam is. I want to give it a little extra support. Okay, so I'm going to go into there, and I'm just going to tie this right now. Okay, double knot it. Like I said, I tied a double wrap and then knot. That is going to be important that stay clear. Okay, so now let's do our bobbin and our weaving, like we showed you before. And on this single crochet end, it's a lot easier. You have a lot of spots that you can see exactly where it needs to go. Tighten that up a little bit, keep going. The more you can bob and weave, and the tighter your stitches are, the easier that top's going to be. Okay, and I like to keep snugging it up as much as I can. Do not yank, just pull it tight. Don't, I guess pull it snug would be a better word for it. Don't pull it tight, because when you get to around here to the end, then you've got a whole lot to pull. It's easier just to keep it pulled right away. So that's just, you can kind of see my single crochet ends. Whoops, I apologize for that. Let's just keep going. Then we'll get a video going on how to join these colors too. There's lots of videos on YouTube on how to join, and some of them are a little trickier than others, and they do a lot of, like the Russian join and a lot of joins that you can do to thread. But I don't find those particularly helpful if you want to have an absolute line of demarcation. If you're just going to keep going with the same color, those are fine. But if you're going to do something where you want, see how it's already getting tighter? It's a lot easier to do than that other stitch, or that other, the other way where you've half doubled all the way to the end, because you have a smaller area to deal with now. Anyway, back to the joining the yarns. It's very easy. It is so simple to do. It's just, there's a very basic one that I use 99% of the time. And I find that I use it more often than not because it is so simple. And you know exactly where your yarn is going to start and stop, because if you want to switch colors, you don't want to have it blending together. Okay, so we're going to get to the end here. As you can see, I have a lot smaller area to try to get snugged up. Okay, let's just kind of snug it around as much as we can. Tug on it. Do not pull tight. Don't hurt it. Don't hurt it. Okay, and I like to, like I showed you before, I like to go back and forth. You've got this little hole here. See, let me pull my finger up through the underside. It's not bad. You can leave it there if you want. There's absolutely nothing wrong with it. I personally don't care for it. Even if you're going to put a pom-pom on, that's just me. I live where it's cold and I like to have the warmth. So we're just going to go back and forth. Now we're going to go back and forth across this way. And this is called the blanket stitch. You go back through and you bring it through that loop, and then you pull it tight. And you try to keep that pretty snug. So let's go to the next hole, next spot that seems logical. Oops, that didn't look like a good spot. So we're going to back it off, make sure. And that's the other thing you can do. Just lay the yarn over there. Let me show you that again. Make sure you got it, you're not getting down into it. You want to go right along the top of that. Then just take your yarn, your big loop here, your big loop, and lay it over the needle, and then pull it through. Oh my goodness, I keep hitting my phone. I apologize. Okay. Lay that over there and pull it through. See if that makes it so I don't hit that phone anymore. See, now we're getting almost to the end there. If you want to learn more about this blanket stitch, and you don't even have to use that, you can go zigging and zagging back and forth across it. It's not going to matter at all. I just find this stitch is a little tighter. Oops, sorry, I was about to split some threads. Not as important up here, but you still don't want to do it if you can avoid it. Okay, so we're now to the end. So I'm going to put that through there. I'm going to do it twice because I want a knot right there. And then since I have this on my thread already, we might as well just weave this one in. So just kind of give yourself a little spot here and kind of pick some threads. Doesn't matter when you're going through the green or not. Just kind of go through some of those loops. You're just going to kind of weave it through there. I don't care if you're splitting some yarns here. That's not so important. And you're going to come right back to about there. You're going to pull that through. And then you're going to cut it right there. And there you go. So we're getting a little long on this video. So this is what the underside looks like. We'll come back another day to learn how to tie these yarns. Let's flip it over and see, it looks really nice on the other side. This is the top, which nobody sees. You can put a pom-pom on there. You can do whatever you want to do. So we have another hat. These are very simple to do. Let me get you a good, I don't know if I can get you a good picture. I've got this that we need to weave into. Easy enough. There we go. Pretty little hat. So thank you for joining me. I will try to be on again for as long this time, and we'll do another stitch. Maybe I'll do the weaving in the ends. I'm not sure. That's not as important quite yet. There's a stitch that I really like to do if I'm making a big blanket, and it's kind of, you don't need to want to be counting your stitches all the time. We're simply just a single, a chain, a single, a chain, a single, a chain, and it makes a real nice little blanket. It's a little bit more of an open weave, but it's very nice. Thank you for joining me. Bye-bye.